kind of increased. So based on data, I took a decision that this is a worthwhile approach to go ahead. So these are like three, four different like broad categories. There may be a lot of subcategories as well. But these are three different broad categories of how any product decision is made. And data is like one of the most fundamental parts of it. So we will go deeply into data. Now, before that, I'll just like give an intro about myself. Who am I? So I am Asad, like product manager with 10 years of experience. Also have started my own startup as well, ex-founder as well. So worked in companies such as Coinbase, Gojek, Swiggy, and the last one, the current and the last one was Meesho. So typically what I do, so I'll just give you a brief about what type of problems that I worked on to. So at Swiggy, I was building the entire growth platform at Swiggy. So every discounting that you see at Swiggy, where you apply a discount on a restaurant, get some benefits out of it. The entire that platform was something that I crafted at Swiggy. After that, went to Gojek, build a transactional ad platform, like getting $15 million of annual revenue, as well as onboarding close to 500,000 SMB merchants onto it. And previous to this, I was at Coinbase. Then at Coinbase, I was building the customer experience platform. So those of you like who may not know Coinbase that much, like Coinbase is the second largest crypto exchange in the world, based out of the US. There I was building the entire customer support platform for users who were transacting on crypto related assets. The last one that I was working up on was at Meesho. Like I was a group product manager at Meesho, building the grocery vertical at Meesho for Bharat users. So how do you build a very low cost, very efficient supply chain for grocery for users who do not want convenience as the main thing. They want like pricing as the most important element there. So that is pretty much about myself. I just first want to know like who are the audiences? Are they PMs, aspirational PMs, or just want to know a little bit about the audience? Maybe if like Team Accredian, if you folks can run a poll, okay, like are folks currently aspiring to be a PM or are they PM or like senior PMs? So I mean, if you can just run a poll, I think would be great to understand and see who the audience is.
Sure. Meanwhile, I think some of them has answered in the chat box. I'll be running the poll right.
Okay, run them three options like aspiring PMs, APMs, or like senior mid-level PMs. I mean, it really helps to understand the audience, like so that like we can have a much more meaningful discussion out here. I see a lot of folks with very diverse background over here, which is amazing. Okay, the poll is now live. Okay. So here is the audience. Like 55% of the folks are aspiring PMs, 15% are PMs, and 30% are like managers but transitioning into PM. Are they like what do you mean by this? I'm assuming.
I think they belong to some diverse fields. Maybe we have folks from pharma, we have folks from
Got it.
FMCG as well. Yeah.
Got it. So awesome. So I think thanks for this input. This really helps to basically like have a much more meaningful session. Let's dive straight into it. Okay, just give me a second. Okay, so fundamentally, now as you have now, like as we discussed, data is at the cornerstone of decision making in a product. Like it's not the only one, but it is one of the most important figures in making product decisions or product changes, product improvements. And in general, like everywhere, like data trumps key. Hey, data brings a lot of truth, what people may value in opinions. Data brings that clarity. But when you look at data in its very rough, unquantifiable way, how do you make sense out of any data? So if you look at the first aspect of measuring data starts with understanding what are product metrics. And the moment you understand and define product metrics, then using these metrics, you can then make a lot of sense of the data that is available to you. Now, product metrics are clear, measurable factors that track the progress of a product and inform its movement. Like, for example, daily active users. Right? So it's a very clear enough product metric which says, ki, hey, on my app, how many people are coming on a daily basis and spending, let's say, X seconds, so that it's not like kind of a bounce rate thing. So typically, that is how you will define something as a daily active user. So, and let's say the more the daily active users of a product, that means that there is growth and innate progress around it. So, very high level metrics, something like a daily active user, which is fundamental to every app or every product out there. And it really helps you to measure your performance. Like, what does a daily active user leads to? It leads to two things. Ki, hey, how efficient was my ad spend? Like, am I getting more users to come to my platform? Or how efficient was my retention strategy? Am I getting more repeat users to come to my platform? Like, both of them can be split into a new user, daily active, and a repeat user daily active usage. So that's how product metrics are. And okay, going to the next one. So why are they very important in this scenario? So they might define a product decision. So for example, if you want to focus on daily active users, that essentially means ki, hey, this is something that I should be focusing on. This is where the company is going to be prioritizing things on. It helps in very effective communication and collaboration with your stakeholder. So that gives them a sense of progress if this metric is moving north, south, and everybody can align to this particular metric. And it helps to identify problems and take corrective course, right? Like if your daily active users are decreasing, then you will do something. There will be an RCA. So that is typically one of the problems that like defining a good metric kind of solves for. And they also provide feedback for any product that you launch. So suppose you launch some, so for example, if Swiggy launched, let's say, a new gamification feature, then they will see, ki, hey, what is the daily active usage of that particular feature, right? So any product that you launch, you have this metric, and then this metrics gives you like, okay, a feedback. I'll give you an example. So there's a very common metric called, so let's say if there is Amazon, and they are running their own ads on their platform. Now, what would be like if they have changed, let's say, the algorithm of which ads to show? What do you guys think is the metric that is going to give you the best feedback for this type of a change? I mean, any guesses on the chat? So the question is pretty simple. Let's say Amazon has launched a new advertising algorithm, so they show ads of products when somebody searches. Let's keep it as simple as that. Now, what do you think is like the primary key metric that should tell you that this new algorithm is working well or not? Uh, Number of users, price, customer acquisition. Okay. And we will come to how and then clicking on ad on spending time on that, right? Okay. So if I clicks per ad, right? Okay. That's slightly difficult. Okay. Okay. So think of a metric called click-through rate, which means number of clicks by number of views. Now, if my ads are better, like why do people change their ad algorithm? They want more clicks on it, right? So if my ads are better, then typically my click-through rate should increase. Otherwise, there's no point in actually changing the algorithm. And mostly even Amazon charges revenue on the basis of cost per click to the advertiser. So it makes complete sense over here. Okay. So that is typically how you basically, if you have a good metric, you will get feedback out of it. Ensure that product success is recognized and identified and recognized throughout the organization. Let's take this example. Now, this led to an improvement of 10% click-through rate. Now, if they didn't had this metric, then what would the PM or the team say? Hey, like what did you actually improve? So it's that measuring guardrail which will even tell you to quantify ki, hey, this was successful, this was not successful. Okay. Okay. So what product decisions are made based on metrics? So what type of how is CTR percentage decided and on what basis? I'll take this question. CTR percentage of so it actually gets recorded when the product is launched by the number of users who view or the number of users who click, taking that ratio. Now it's not decided. Now, if you are asking ki, hey, like how did somebody estimate ki by launching this algorithm, I would increase click-through rate from X% to Y%, then that is something that can be done via estimation. So for example, you will figure out ki, hey, if you made the ad more personalized, then typically how much is going to be your improvement in click-through rate. So you will look at certain benchmarks or certain other experiments that have been done and say, ki, okay, a personalized ad can lead to an improvement in CTR by X%. But first of all, what is CTR? CTR is click-through rate, which means number of clicks divided by number of views. Okay. Now, this is one of the most fundamental things on like any recommendation product. Like click-through rate becomes very fundamental to this. Okay. Prioritizing conflicting initiatives. So assessing product impact potential. So you need to estimate how much is going to be the impact before even somebody gives you, "Okay, hey, you should be building this." So that is why where product metrics are helpful. So it can also, so when there are two objectives or when there are two different products to build, how do you basically prioritize between them? Okay, if I have to build this ad algorithm change, or should I basically improve, let's say, the creative of the ad, right? So there, let's say there are two options for Amazon here. Should I change the algorithm or should I use AI to improve the creative of the ad? So between these two things, which one should I be doing? Now, if you know ki what is going to be, let's say, the CTR difference between the two, then you are going to decide ki, okay, this is like the CTR difference, which is from an impact perspective. While there are other considerations as well, such as uh, effort and confidence as well. But that is very important. Ki, hey, like this common metric tells you, ki, okay, this is giving me 10% impact, this is giving me 8% impact. And it also helps you ki, hey, like during when you have to basically organize user stories when you're writing the PRD. So if you have to ever basically figure out, let's say, and this is a common problem most PMs would face. Let's say you wanted to build this ad algorithm, but figured out ki, hey, you have very less engineering bandwidth available. So you will cut down even some of the features in this algorithm. So how would you decide which thing to cut down, which thing to not? So there will be some features which is very detrimental, which is very direct to impact, and some features which are not going to give you that much impact. So typically on the basis of that, you will decide ki, okay, I will not want it and I will only do this. So you organize the user stories based on highest impact. And obviously, like when you develop product features aligned with metrics, you can basically figure out a better MVP. So a lot of things that may not be required is stricken down, and it gets you to a very simpler and a thinner MVP if you are basing your North Star goal to basically the metric. I mean, somebody wrote it down. Tech debt is a brilliant example, right? Like if you basically come up and if you want to launch MVP of this ad algorithm change, now there would also be certain tech debt ki, hey, like that may not directly attribute to the product, but yes, it can really prevent scaling. So if you are in a very MVP kind of a mode, then you will say ki, hey, let's build it out, do the tech debt once we see the experiment has resulted in success. So that is where you can like trim down the product to the very bare minimum. MVP is minimum viable product, which is typically like if you have to validate an idea, what is the minimum possible product that you can launch with least amount of effort to get quick validations from your users. Okay. Um, so the next one is how do you define a metric? So typically there are three things that you should really kind of keep in mind. So the first one is normalized. So let's take an example. If you take a session, if you take a metric such as orders per day for a company like Swiggy. Now, orders per day is typically a factor of three aspects, right? What is the total number of users or DAU on the platform? And what is typically the conversion, which is orders per session. Now, DAU is a function of too many things. It is a function of marketing. It is a function of like retention strategy. Too many things that lead to DAU. And if you just look at orders per day as like a key product metric, it may be a company metric, but as a product manager, if you look at that metric, it will be very variable and there will be so many things which has caused it to go up and down. So a better way to measure this is typically using something called orders per session. So you normalize it. Normalize means a ratio, which in the numerator you have like total number of orders, and in the denominator you have daily active users. So or daily active sessions or total number of sessions. So that is typically what we call as normalized. Now the next aspect is elasticity. Now, elasticity is a very important thing. Now, if you want to make a change and see if there is an impact or not, then typically that metric needs to be very elastic. That means that the moment you change the core value proposition, then the impact should also be very, we should not come without a lag. It should be very, very in sync. So immediate reflection of impact without any lag means a highly elastic metric. Now, if you take at something, so let's say you have launched, let's say, a new product, right? And you want to measure the rating of your, let's say, Swiggy wants to measure the ratings of like how their delivery service is performing. If you take a metric like customer NPS, which is a survey that goes every week to the consumer, it is very difficult to find a direct correlation with your delivery. But if you take something like an average delivery order ratings, which is a very direct measure of how good or bad the delivery is. So that means this metric is very elastic. Now, the third aspect is key, you still want the metric to be very simple. You don't want to complicate it so that people don't understand, and there is a lot of difficulty in basically measuring it. Like if you have metrics, hey folks, just can you give me 1 second, please? Hey, sorry for that. I was actually alone at home. There was somebody at the door. So the last aspect is measurable, which is cost per incremental order. So if you look at measurable, you should not require an A/B experiment to measure this, right? It should be very simple. So something like cost per incremental order as a metric for running discounts on a platform is very difficult to track. But if you have something like customer acquisition cost, that is more or less very easy and simple to calculate. So it should be a very easily measurable thing. Okay. So here are some fundamental dilemmas of a product manager. Your products aren't prioritized due to mismatch with the company's priorities. So if you don't have the right metric, then your product would not be prioritized. I mean, you can select the wrong metric for your product and you realize it after launching that you have basically selected a wrong metric. So I'll give you an example. We at Meesho, so we were trying to basically launch something called a repeat purchase widget, which is typically at grocery. If you have ordered something, then what you have ordered in the last order is visible upfront on the home page. Now, when that happens, so initially the PM on this took the key metric as average order value, which means ki, hey, if I put this, my average order value would increase. Now that was a wrong thing because the metric that actually moved was the conversion for a repeat user. Because the moment they saw this set of products, they converted far more easily. So typically that is where if you've taken the wrong metric, you will realize after launching, ki, hey, you're taking a wrong metric, right? Which is not a very best place to be in. I haven't been able to achieve success, right? Like he was first looking at AOV, didn't move. Then we looked at another metric and then saw that it moved. And the other aspect is typically you also rely on some other teams to reach the success metric but fail. So if you take such a metric which is not very crisp, then it may so depend upon some other teams and will cause problems to you. So while achieving success for your product, you may unintentionally compromise on other teams' metric. So let's say ki when you are running ads and if you take up a lot of ad space on the home page, you can end of the day like hurt the conversion on the home page because ads are not as efficient as normal discovery. Now, if you don't have basically the customer conversion as typically the check metric, very difficult for you to basically uh and you will unintentionally start compromising other metrics as well. Okay, happy to take few questions before we go forward.
Asad, if I may, I'm asking this from in behalf from everyone right now. So you just told about the intent of picking actionable metrics, right? It's not just picking any metrics. It should ultimately impact what you're looking for, right? So are there any thumb rules for picking it up? Because you said click-through rate might be an option, but I want the real intent out of it, right? So you just fine-tuned it. So what are some thumb rules to pinpoint what metrics you're looking at?
So I think the thumb rule is key. See that metric. So the things are measurable, elastic. Those are like fundamentals you have to do. Measurable, elastic, and normalized. That definitely needs to be there. The thumb rule is you have to understand ki what your product is actually impacting and picking that particular product, right? So and this repeat purchase widget can okay. Okay, just give me a second. I think some of the folks are having some problem with the full form of some of the terminologies. I'm really sorry for that. Like next time, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to basically write down the full form of something. Assuming most of the folks here are from non-product background. So, okay, that is you see, these are very common product metrics that are used. I'm really sorry if I have not explained that properly. I'll do that. Okay. To answer to your question, so the thumb rule here is key. Ultimately, you have to understand like what is typically the product flywheel, what your product is actually impacting. Like for example, if you look at this repeat purchase widget or repeat purchase widget, like so folks, if you can open Zepto or Swiggy, you will find a section called reorders, right? Just on top of your homepage. That is what I am exactly talking about. Now, if you understand what your product is delivering, what value it is delivering, then you will be able to understand, okay, this is how I should be measuring it. So saying that the repeat purchase widget is giving me to add more items to the cart was not the right thing. If you look at, if you have that widget, that brings in personalization and familiarity. So even if the user does not want to order, it actually improves the ordering capability for the user, because now I have made it pretty easier for them to find what their favorite items are, and which leads to a much easier order. So hence, in this way, if you take average order value as the metric, that is wrong. But if you take something like a repeat conversion as a metric, that ideally helps. Now, the fact is ki why would I have taken repeat conversion as a metric? Why not conversion? Because this is only for users who have at least placed one order on the platform. If somebody has not placed at least even one order, then I don't know their ordering history. I can't show them a reorder widget. So, so that is how I will define. Okay, this is the metric. This is what success to me looks like. Okay. Any other question? I think does that clear your doubt?
Yeah, absolutely. Crystal clear. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, how do we validate the right metric before launch? I mean, you should not validate it before launch. Even before the first line of code is written, you should know what is the right metric. And as I just mentioned, you have to figure out what your product actually is moving and then understand, ki, okay, this is the metric. But the better way of doing product management is not even that. You first figure out what is the metric you want to move, and then on the basis of that metric, that problem, you will then end up like figuring out the solution. So your metric is the first thing that gets frozen, and everything else happens after that. So changing, validating metric after launch is not the best place to be in. It needs to be done much before that. Okay, any other question? Okay, Girish, you had a question, not clear. I didn't understand what it was. Okay, that's fine. We'll go to the next one. So, as I was saying, it is very important for you to understand how the flywheel of your product is moving. Now, when you understand the Uber picture or the bigger picture of what are the forces that affect your users, then you would understand ki, okay, these are the metrics that actually define each of these states. So, one of the very sustainable concepts over here is the product flywheel, and I'll explain a few about Pinterest. I mean, is there anyone who does not know Pinterest as a product? Okay, so for those who don't know Pinterest as a product, so this is typically a product where you can go and pin your images on the web. On Pinterest is like an image repository where people can discover new images, and they can also pin their favorite images as well. Yeah, like Naveen, really correct. This is an image search engine, but also for people, the value proposition for, so one set of people is to discover images, the other set of people is to keep images so that they can store it online. Okay. Now the next one is okay. So if you look at Pinterest, what exactly is the product flywheel here? So what happens? There is typically a lot of images already on Pinterest. I will go and search an image. Hey, I want home decor items. I am a new user. I don't know about Pinterest. On Google SEO search, I will see a lot of images from Pinterest. Then I'll go to the Pinterest site, and then I will start basically interacting with the relevant content. So the first step is key now Pinterest, due to its huge search, due to its huge image database, attracts me and signs me up to the platform. I will go ahead and find very relevant content now because I will give my preferences, use discovery, and try to go ahead. So the main thing here is ki, am I interacting with the content? Now the most important aspect is, now if I have found certain content relevant, then comes the third stage of things. So basically, you users save new content or repin existing content, right? So I can basically use existing content on the platform, save that, or I can basically upload new content as well. So typically your, so if you look at any social startup or social media startup, then there are creators and then there are consumers, right? The people who create content. So in a classic flywheel, what is typically? First, you want consumers, then the consumers should turn into creators, and those creators should create enough content, and then that content should bring in new consumers. This is the story across all, like even if you look at Airbnb, when they started, they wanted consumers to try Airbnb, then those consumers should stay like Airbnb, and then they should put their own houses also on rent to become as host. So the guest should turn into a host was one of the philosophies that Airbnb really tried in the initial years. Assuming it's the US where people have like homes, so it was easy for them to basically have this extra income there. So that was the flywheel that they were chasing. So typically this is here as well. Now you have new, you save or basically get new content, and then this new content is being indexed through search engines to give better ranking to Pinterest, and which then results into more users coming to Pinterest. So this is a product flywheel. Now, any product that you are doing, please try to find a flywheel. Then you will understand in which stage, which is typically the metric. Now, in the first stage, you would want to see ki, hey, people signing in by traffic, right? So new user acquisition percentage is typically what you are going to look at. Then the second stage would be ki, hey, how many pins or how many, uh, how much is my time spent, how much is my engagement on Pinterest. The third could be ki, new content that I uploaded per user for users who are beyond a particular age on the platform. And then the fourth one is ki, hey, what is my improvement in search engine ranking as a result of all the newer content that is coming up. Okay, so this is the product flywheel. Now, this is something that I'm assuming that's clear to users on the flywheel side. Is there any question? Please put it up on chat. Okay. Now, if you were to look at typically, this is the GEM framework. I mean, in most organizations, there are three different verticals of metrics. I mean, growth, engagement, and monetization. While there could also be other things in other type of companies, but primarily everything revolves around this. Growth is typically they, I mean, how much the company is growing. I mean, it could be something like customer acquisition cost, right? How much money does it require to acquire one consumers? So you have to define what does acquisition mean for you. Acquisition, does it mean users signing up, users placing their first order, depending upon the platform, or users spending X minutes on the platform? Then new user conversion rate. Okay, how many users came and how many users actually converted? So that is my new user conversion rate. Daily active users is typically how many users are coming on a daily active basis. Now, engagement is a metric which is typically showing ki, hey, if users, if so you can't acquire new users infinitely because there is a cost to it. And cost, and also it is, say suppose you have a product, for example, you for example, GitHub, right? I mean, if GitHub, I mean, only finite number of people would use GitHub, those who are software developers. For that matter, let's look at Figma, like designers or PMs would use Figma for that matter. Now, if Figma does not have any engagement, they will soon run out of people on growth, and hence that's not going to be sustainable for them. And also, it takes more money to acquire users. So, hence, growth is slightly costly. Now, engagement is typically done so that users that come to the platform retain on the platform. Now, there could be a lot of ways to measure engagement. It could be your repeat rate, something like a Swiggy may measure a repeat rate. Hey, how many people are coming back within a month? How many orders within a month? How many transactions within a month? Then there could be something like month on month retention. Am I coming back after 30 days to the platform or not? There could also be things like, for example, for WhatsApp or Instagram, it could be DAO by MAU. DAO is daily active users, MAU is monthly active users, right? If this ratio is one, which means daily active users is equal to monthly active users, that means every user that I have is coming daily on the platform for the 30 days. So they are opening the app on a daily basis. But if this is, let's say, 0.5, that means okay, every user is opening for 15 days within a month. So that is how the DAU by MAU is a very big measure of engagement. There could also be metrics for Instagram, such as time spent per user per day, right? Like how much time. So time spent is also a metric where engagement is always there on a daily level. Like for example, if you look at a product like WhatsApp, which you would be using on a daily basis, or Slack for that matter, or Gmail for that matter, then even DAO by MAU does not make a lot of sense here. You want a metric which says, ki, hey, like spend more time. And that is typically like time spent per user, per session, per day could be a metric. Then the last aspect to this is monetization. Monetization is average revenue per user. Revenue could be something like coming from ads, coming from transactions, and then it can also be something like a subscription renewal rate. Like people, for example, Netflix. Netflix will have this very key metric as subscription renewal. Okay, so we will just quickly go through what are different types of metrics that you have. And I will just quickly go through this. Let's take the example of North Star metric. This is the most important metric for an app, and this defines the success of your particular product or an app. Now, for a social media app like Instagram, it could be DAU by Wow. Wow is weekly active users, DAU is daily active users. And it can also be time spent per day by the user, because now Instagram has moved to a use case where it is almost being used daily. Now, if that is the most important metric that, let's say, like Mark Zuckerberg will care about Instagram, if that metric is moving right, then he is more or less happy. Hey, like we are moving engagement. Now, the next aspect is input metrics. Now, suppose if you look at like as an input metric, what are some of the input metrics that is very important, which says ki, hey, our users is that moving in the right direction. So it breaks down the main success metric into smaller input components. And so even if there is some lag, you know, if the input metric is working fine, then typically that means this is on the right track. Like for example, you can then take the example of how many times the user is opening an app in a day, right? That would be a good enough input metric for Instagram's North Star metric. I know it is written average time spent per day per user, but in a slightly more older world where Instagram was not as much as daily usage, then this can also be an input metric where DAU by MAU or DAU by WOW is your North Star metric. Now, check metric is typically if everything that you are doing is that moving in the right direction or not. So the moment you figure this out, whether things are moving in the right direction or not, uh, you need to also understand if there is any problem that is happening with the metric or not. So that problem is usually quantified by a check metric. Now, if you have improved your engagement, but if your revenue has gone down, that's not a very good place to be in. That's where check metric are counterbalances, which are there to basically minimize any negative effect for your product. Okay, so This is in itself would be its own topic, A/B testing. I mean, very top level is typically this is A/B testing, where you also called split testing. When you have so let's say if you launched a new algorithm and you want to see how much that is, how better that is as compared to the old one, what you will do is something called an A/B test. You will have 50% users or some X% users seeing the new product and the X% users seeing the old one. Between these two groups, you will see ki what is the difference on your North Star metric. And hence, that difference is what is going to tell this is the impact of the product. So that is where A/B testing comes into picture. Now, A/B testing measures impact. It also reduces new product launches. So, for example, if there is some risk, then you launch it for a very small audience, see what the risk is, and then it helps you with data to make decisions. I mean, I'll give you an example. Swiggy wanted to change. There's a very famous. Okay, let me give you a Swiggy example. So Swiggy wanted to change the color of its button from green to orange at one point in time. So we had to do an A/B test to figure out what is the impact. And then we saw that the orange one gives a better conversion as compared to a green one. And that change was then done. Okay, so I'll just quickly run through this PM data toolkits. So it could be divided into four different types of tools for data. Instrumentation, which is typically your ability to basically measure metrics or log metrics. So for example, Clever Tap, Mo Engage, Web Engage. So if a user clicks on a particular button, where is that getting logged in your database? That is what is called instrumentation. Then there are data pipelines, which means now once that is logged, can you then bring that to your database with a more cleaned up format? This is what is called data pipelines. Snowflake, Datadog, Redash are such tools that help you in this. Then there is the visualization layer. Hey, now you have data in a database. Can I visualize, make cuts on data? So Metabase, Power BI, all of these help in this. And to run an A/B experiment, there is Optimizely, StatSig, and there are other tools as well. Okay, I mean, on some case studies, if you look at if somebody has to increase ad revenue for Swiggy, then North Star metric could be ad revenue as percentage of GMV, which is normalized. An input metric could be key on the merchant side. It could be something like a return on ad spend for the merchant, merchant ads repeat rate, how many times they are buying the ad again and again. And then customer side, you will look at click through rate, and then the check metric could be, ki, hey, my overall conversion has that gone down or not. Okay, I will take some questions before we go deeper into this. I think, okay. Can you repeat about the interdependency on North Star metric and A/B testing? So A/B testing, so North Star metric is the metric that you will measure in an A/B test. So for example, if click-through rate on the ads example was, so if you want to do an experiment on the ad algorithm change, then you will measure the click-through rate between the test and control. So that is the relationship. Input metric, I gave you an example, right? Here is an example of input metric. So for ad revenue as percentage of GMV, you want merchants to have a very high return on ad spend. Now, if merchants have a higher return on ad spend, then they typically will run more ads, right? And that is typically will lead to more improved ad revenue as percentage of GMV is gross merchandise value, which means the total sales happening on Swiggy. Okay, can't see PPT. Have you ever faced a situation where A/B testing shows something and defies the available research data? If yes, you could. Yeah, I just faced this situation. So we were launching a rupee one deal on Meesho grocery where the expectation was, hey, if you show rupee one deal to the user of sugar, then there is going to be an increase in conversion, right? And there is going to be some CAC, but increase in conversion would be there. But what we were not sure about, ki how should we show this? One of the aspect was ki you just show the rupee one deal in the whole widget and leave an empty space on the right hand side, because if you look on a horizontal scroll you can show two widgets very easily. So one, you show the rupee one sugar and show the other one as blank, and the other option was showing typically all four options together. Now, I expected ki when you have a better UI and you show this rupee one deal horizontally more prominently to the user, that should lead to a better conversion as compared to not showing it more visibly. But that was something that actually came opposite. Ki even if you show like half of it, users still convert as compared to well showing the full of it, right? So that was one of the things that we realized. Hey, the presentation, especially for Bharat users, does not matter too much. What matters to them was familiarity, because earlier all the SKUs were that 2x1 wala aspect on a horizontal scroll. Okay, please explain with examples about North Star metric. Would not view PM2. I'll send the slide. I don't think that should be a problem. Okay. If not, how does DAU by MAU that so if so the way I explained this example, engagement is what? Like users coming back again and again, spending more time to your platform. That is engagement, right? Because they didn't only come once, they came back again and again, saw more value. So let's say, let me give you an example. Let's say I have a monthly active users base of 50, right? And if I have a daily active user base of 10, right? So that means every day 10 people are coming. So if you just take it into multiply this by 30, so total 300 user days came into the platform. And because 10 into 30 would be 300, and but only 50 unique users are there. So if you divide 300 by 50, the ratio comes as 6, right? Which means every user is coming 6 times in a month to the platform. Now, if your DAO increases to, let's say, 25 and your mouse still remains the same at 50, that typically means ki 25 into 30 is what? Like 750 divided by 50. That means every user is coming 15 times to the platform in a month. That means my engagement has gone up. Okay. North Star metric. Let me just show you one more example. Just give me a second. Okay. So North Star metric, I gave you the most important metric. So for us as an entire like ad pod at Swiggy, we had ad revenue as percentage of GMV, which means ki, let's say if Swiggy was selling 100 rupees on the platform, what percentage of that was ad revenue coming from sellers? So, and that number was 3 at some point in time. Now it has gone to 4. So 4% of ad revenue as GMV. And this is perhaps the most important. Had I taken GMV on the platform, which is gross merchandise value, which means ki, hey, let's say if Swiggy does 10 orders in a day at a AOV average order value of 500, that means it is doing 5,000 rupees of GMV every day. Now, 5,000 rupees of GMV into basically 365 is typically your GMV for a year. Okay. Merchant ads repeat rate. Yes, typically, if you look at merchant ads, okay, does that answer the question? Okay. So basically, DAO does not include unique instances, while for WAU or MAU, no, DAO is unique instances, but unique instances on a day, right? Like if 50 people came uniquely in a day, but in a month only 100 people came uniquely, right? That means some users are coming again and again, right? But if let's say if you take an example, if your DAO is typically uh so if I take my DAO as one user a day and MAU as 30, right? So that means ki every day one user is coming only once, right? So that is where that ratio matters. I mean, you guys can read it on the internet. I mean, you can read it also on my blog where I write a lot about things. I think I'll just ping this up. Just give me a second. Just ping this up. You can go to my blog where I write some of these things that I have seen as a product manager, like writing from my own experiences of building products, where I explain some of these dilemmas in detail. Okay. Happy to take more questions onto this. Is there a way to find out how many are repeat consumers? Yes, absolutely. Like you have that instrumentation, you will always know how many of them are repeat consumers. I mean, usually if you look at like the user segmentation life journey is divided into three parts. So one is the new users, so the users who are new, treat them differently. Then users who are like kind of repeat, and then users who are dormant. So who were repeat at one point in time and now have not are not coming back to the platform. So these are three types of users that you have. Okay. I think we are also on time as well. Happy to basically take any questions on LinkedIn offline. Okay. I mean, you can search Asad Abrar. I think that makes sense. Just search this in LinkedIn. Like, this is my profile. Uh, us, yes. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, Asad, thank you so much for this session. Uh, People had their fair bit of questions, but I think you nailed them, every bit of it. I hope people enjoyed it as well, because I really have enjoyed it, because it really intrigues me as to how product managers see the bigger picture before even the product is there in the market. That is really intriguing for product manager to see, right? And I think that is the crux behind finding out valuable matrices that will actually guide your product to the right direction, right? So yeah, looking forward to many other sessions with you.
Yeah, sure,
Um,
sure. Happy to connect
right.
and happy to basically get into more details. I mean, next time I'll make sure that all these terms I will write full forms because a lot of folks are from product background as well. But I think going forward, if folks are like very serious into product management and if you want to attend more product sessions, I would say ki please get yourself used to the basic terminologies. That is very, very important. If you don't understand basic terminologies, it will be very difficult to understand some advanced concepts, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think on that note, we'll be concluding this session, right? For batches who have any who have their classes at 11, you guys can drop off and join that session. And for all of you, we'll be sharing the link. By the way, we're live on YouTube as well. You can have a look over the session there. And I'll also be sharing this PPT. I think Asad will be sharing it, right?
Yeah, I'll share it with the Accredian team.
Right. Okay, sounds fine. Sounds well. Thanks so much for your valuable time. Thanks to you guys for joining us. We'll be continuing with these sessions in the future. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye.